Here's what you need to know before anything else. Imagic was one signature away from Wall Street. December 1982. The roadshow was finished. The underwriters lined up. 9 months after this company existed as nothing but two separate business plans on two different desks. Then, Atari said one sentence about a disappointing Christmas, and the IPO that would have made Imagic's founders rich evaporated in days. Notice that timing, because it's the whole case. Another empire, another case. Here's what really happened. Bill Grubb spent 18 months as Atari's vice president of sales and marketing. He watched Activision walk out the door in 1979 and turned ex-Atari programmers into a real company. By 1981, Grubb had left Atari and started writing his own business plan to do the same thing on the same console. Here's the part worth sitting with. He wasn't the only one thinking it. Jim Goldberger was a marketing executive at Mattel. His colleague, Brian Doherty, was a senior Mattel engineer. Independently, without knowing about Grubb, they were drafting a plan to publish third-party games for the Intellivision. Grubb and Goldberger already knew each other. When they compared notes, they realized they had been building the same company from two different console ecosystems, which means, instead of competing, they merged. Grubb later called July 17, 1981, the company's real day one. 9 people in a room, joining Atari veterans Dennis Coble, Rob Fulp, and Bob Smith, with Goldberger and Doherty from Mattel. The corporate paperwork had been filed 6 weeks earlier, on June 1st, but Grubb's day one is the one he chose to remember. Keep that choice in mind. It tells you something about how this story gets told versus what actually happened. The pitch to investors was simple. Activision only made games for one console. Imagic would make games for two. They raised $2 million in seed funding in under a year. What they built with it moved faster than almost anything in the industry's short history, and faster, as it turned out, than it could survive. Rob Fulop had already proved himself at Atari, quietly building a version of Missile Command that hid his own initials as an Easter egg. At Imagic, he spent 5 months building something original, Demon Attack, a wave shooter that borrowed its core idea from the arcade hit Phoenix. Demon Attack launched in 1982, along Star Voyager and Trickshot. It became Imagic's breakout hit, and by later accounts, its best-selling cartridge, outselling even Atlantis, a game Imagic's own Dennis Coble said sold over 2 million copies on its own. Here's what that adds up to. Through the first 3 quarters of 1982, the company reported roughly $48 million in sales. By November, Imagic filed to go public, with Merrill Lynch and Hembrecht and Quist as underwriters. Grubb, Doherty, and the company's CFO completed a full investor roadshow. Everything was in place for Imagic to become the first pure video game stock most of Wall Street had ever seen. The offering was scheduled for December 1982, but it would never happen. During Imagic's IPO review period, Atari made an announcement that had nothing directly to do with Imagic at all. Console sales for the 1982 holiday season, Atari said, were coming in significantly below expectations. Sit with that for a second. One sentence about a different company's Christmas numbers, and investor confidence in the entire video game sector cracked overnight. Imagic's own IPO got caught in the blast radius of a warning issued by the company it was founded to compete against. Here's what happened next. Imagic's underwriters had a decision to make. They delayed the offering indefinitely. Imagic would never go public. Not that week, not ever. At almost the same time, Atari sued Imagic directly, arguing the television version of Demon Attack infringed on Atari's exclusive home rights to Phoenix. The case eventually settled out of court, without a public ruling on damages or wrongdoing. One more distraction landing on the company at the worst possible moment. Imagic had built a real business. $48 million in sales wasn't a rumor, but a real business built entirely on console momentum was about to learn that momentum can disappear faster than it arrived. By 1983, the crash Atari had warned about wasn't a warning anymore. It was happening. Imagic laid off 40 of its 170 employees that year. The company didn't vanish immediately. It showed up at CES in 1984, still pitching new platforms, still trying to diversify into computer software. But the momentum that had carried it from 9 people to a nearly successful IPO in 18 months never came back. Most accounts place Imagic's actual end sometime around 1986, though nobody has ever pinned down an exact date. Some of its games later resurfaced under Activision's name. But here's a detail worth holding on to. Bill Grubb himself said in 2003 that the rights were never formally sold to Activision or to anyone else, which means even Imagic's afterlife is still, in a small way, unresolved. You're getting the same uncertainty the people who lived it never fully resolved either. Imagic proved something Activision alone hadn't fully proven yet, that the new third-party gold rush wasn't limited to disgruntled programmers. It could attract real venture capital, a real Wall Street pitch, and companies from entirely outside the games industry looking at cartridge sales and wanting in. One of those companies made board games, not video games, and it was about to place the same bet Imagic just lost. Here's what you're walking away with. A company that nearly went public in 18 months faded out within 4 years, killed less by its own mistakes than a single sentence from the competitor it was built to challenge. What you don't know yet is who else saw this gold rush and jumped in anyway, even after watching companies like this one nearly make it. That's the next case file. Another empire, another case. Here's what really happened.